Hey everyone! In today's episode, I speak with Angela. She's a pediatric physical therapist with hearing loss. So let's get into the episode and hear what she has to say. Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me, April. I'm excited to finally connect.
Yes, this is great. So let's start off with talking about your connection to the hearing loss world.
Yeah, so I was born with hearing loss. It was diagnosed actually during kindergarten screening, so it was a late diagnosis. When I was little, there were concerns that I maybe had like learning challenges or I had, a speech delay. They thought maybe I had behavioral issues because I couldn't like follow directions and always like listen to my preschool teachers and things like that. And then during kindergarten, I was screened for hearing loss. It was found that I had mild to moderate at that time. And so I got my first pair of hearing aids when I was 5. And my hearing has it's sensory neural, and so it's been consistent my whole life, but has been progressive as I've gotten older. So now my hearing is more in the moderate to severe category, and I definitely notice a lot more challenges with hearing and communication than I did when I was a kid.
Oh wow, yeah, that I'm similar to you. I have moderate to severe, so I definitely understand those challenges. So since you've been wearing hearing aids since a very young age, how have you noticed technology changing from your first pair to the pair you have now?
That's a loaded question because I actually, when I was little, I got my first pair of hearing aids. I'll never forget them because I thought they were so cool. The mold was purple and sparkly, and they gave me access to the world that I didn't even know I was missing out on at that time. I loved them so much until I went to first grade, and I realized quickly that they were not accepted by my peers. I was teased a lot for the hearing aids. Um, my classmates kind of left me out. I was seen as different and excluded. And so, as a little 6-year old, I decided that it was not worth it to wear the hearing aids. And so, from probably like second grade until I think I went to college, I did not wear my hearing aids. So I made a deal with my parents that I had to sit in the front of the classroom so I could read lips and hear the best I could. And my teachers had to know about my hearing loss so that they could, find better ways to support me. And as long as my grades didn't slip, then I could get away with it. And so that's what I did. And it came with a lot of consequences for, my energy, for my learning, for my communication. I remember being in sleepovers and with my friends, and the lights go out, so now I can't read lips anymore, and everybody's whispering and I can't hear those even if I do wear my hearing aids. And I remember just like missing out on so much because of that. um so I finally got hearing aids again in college because I realized very quickly in those big lecture halls, like, I just could not get away with it anymore, especially with my hearing getting worse over time. And so I went back and got hearing aids again, and I was like blown away. Like, I remember I didn't know that a blinker on the car made a noise. I didn't know it went click, 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 click. I was going to school in Hawaii at the time, and so I couldn't hear any of the birds around me when I was walking to class. Like, so it was really amazing, but it was also really overwhelming. And something that I've been wearing full-time hearing aids now for, oh, 15 years or so, since college. Um, and I feel often very frustrated in the lack of progress with technology when it comes to my hearing aids. Um, since in that time, the things that have changed are pretty minimal and not very like life changing in my opinion, compared to, I also have vision loss, and so when I was a little kid, it was pretty much only glasses. And now you can do LASIK, and you can wear contacts, and you can do cataract replacements. And the technology has just exploded when it comes to vision. And I feel like that part of that is just inequities because more people have vision loss in the like common population. More people are familiar with it, comfortable with it, and it's more acceptable. And so therefore there's more like research and more resources and more attention to it compared to hearing loss, which, you know, in my experience has been more stigmatized and is kind of like just put off as like, that's just like, it doesn't impact that many people, so we are not going to put the resources into it. So that definitely is a frustration of mine.
Yeah, and you made the point of when you got your first hearing aids, like you didn't realize what you had been missing, and then all of those sounds were overwhelming. And that is such a good point to make because most people don't realize they have hearing loss because they don't know what they're missing out on. And then when they do get hearing aids, they're like, whoa, this is a lot to take in. And I think that's part of the overwhelming acceptance process is like, wow, I was missing out on so much more than I realized. And um, it just makes me so sad that like even as a 6-year-old, people were so like cruel like towards hearing aids. And I mean, you as an advocate and myself as an advocate, like we're trying to change that, and hopefully one day we can, because that just breaks my little heart.
I
Um,
know it's definitely hard, and it's really shaped a lot of who I am, you know, in good, mostly good ways. It's really has given me more of a personal connection to disability, which is a space that I work in as a pediatric physical therapist, very intimately. Um, and you know, I do have a lot of hope for future generations. I was able to give a talk about dismantling ableism and shared a lot about my experience with hearing loss and being bullied because of my hearing aids, and kind of overcoming some of those challenges, to a local group of middle schoolers here in Washington State. And they were just like so engaged and attentive and kind and welcoming. And my favorite part was this little girl came up, this little fifth grader came running up to me after the talk, and she goes, "Guess what? Want to know something awesome?" And I was like, "Yeah, what?" She's like, "I have hearing aids too." And she
oh,
pulled her hair back and she showed me her hearing aids, and I pulled my hair back and showed her my hearing aids. And
I
she was
love
just
that.
she was so proud of it, you know, and so excited to share that with me, which is something that I never felt safe to do as a kid. And so clearly that's a combination of, I think, our society changing and kids being, just, you know, more aware and more acceptive and inclusive lately. So I
Oh,
do feel a lot of hope for the future.
that's amazing. And I think that's another thing too, is just the more we can talk to younger generations about hearing aids and hearing loss, it'll become more accepted because glasses are right in your face. You see them every day. Whereas hearing aids, like they're kind of discreet. So I have hope as well. So you mentioned that you are a pediatric physical therapist. I got that right? So
Yeah.
how did you get into that? And were there some challenges with your hearing loss? Do you have any tips for people who want to get into that field who also have hearing loss? Let's kind of touch on that.
Yeah. Physical therapy school was relatively similar as far as my participation and my needs compared to, undergrad
Okay.
and my college experience. So there are different technical standards that all the different physical therapy programs will list out for you. You must be able to lift this much. You must be able to walk this far. You must be able to see this well. You must be able to hear this well. And depending on the school, some of those technical standards can be really challenging for folks who do have disabilities to be able to even apply to the program. Luckily, with my hearing aids, I am able to hear enough to like function at the baseline level that they needed for my program. So getting accepted into the program wasn't a barrier to me like it is for many other people. So I definitely had privilege there. There were some challenging things about, being in PT school. One of the hardest things was hearing in lectures. So a lot of times the lectures are not just like a presenter in the front of the room. They're usually like lab components. They're kind of like walking all around. So my strategy of sitting in the front of the room to be close to the presenter didn't always work because the presenter is often moving all over. But luckily, my classmates were incredibly supportive. They were the first group of people that I was open with about my hearing loss and shared a lot and, expressed my needs of that might have been different with. And so they were incredibly supportive. My professors would allow me to move around the room to better hear the teachers. And so for folks who are considering a career in healthcare, I would just encourage you to be, feel empowered to be an advocate for yourself and ask for what you need, because people are not going to offer it. People usually don't even know what to do and what you might need. And especially in healthcare, I often joke that, in healthcare, we are the most ableist among us. Like, we're always fighting for like normal function and to cure everybody. And while those values of helping people improve their lives through their health are really valuable, I also think that there's damage that happens in that we don't recognize and value the disabled identity very well. And so I found that to be one of the biggest challenges working in healthcare, is just that, we do a really good job of taking care of our patients with disabilities, but we don't always support each other when we have disabilities ourselves. So I think being a strong advocate and asking for what you need is a really helpful strategy, regardless of what field you go into, but especially in healthcare.
That's a really great tip. And I think that's one thing in the hearing loss industry itself, is advocating is so hard, but so important, because that's how more people become aware of it. Because like you said, not a lot of people are aware of it, but need to be made aware of it. So that's a really good point. So you specifically work with children. And I know for me personally, I find them some of the most difficult people to understand because they're not quite at communication communication levels that we need. So do you have any tips or tricks for people working with children, or how do you communicate effectively with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's definitely a consideration that I thought about when deciding which field of physical therapy I wanted to go into. I love kids so much. I am so passionate about supporting them, in their early stages of life to set them up for success. But their quiet little voices and their articulation patterns are not always what I'm used to. They often don't have the oral motor skills to like formulate the words in the same way that adults do. So reading lips gets really challenging. So communicating with little kids is very, very difficult for me. There's several things that I do and that I would recommend other folks do in similar situations. One is, I always get down to the kids' level, which I think is a really valuable practice, even if you don't have hearing loss. So whenever I'm speaking with a child, I get down on my knees, I get close to their face. I'm kind of like trying to get at the same level as them to communicate with them and to make them feel respected and included. And so that's helpful to just get like, kind of physically as close as possible. And then I also find that telling the parents that I have hearing loss is helpful because it allows them to see when I'm not understanding their kid to kind of jump in as a translator. And the good news is that with a lot of young kids, communication is challenging, not just for people with hearing loss, but for everybody, because they're still working on their speech. And so parents are usually more than happy to jump in as like a translator or an interpreter and kind of like help with that communication. And so I really appreciate when they do that too, to help optimize communication. And the other thing that I would say is that a lot of communication with kids is through play, and it's through facial expressions and body language. And so I try to be very intentional that, even if there's little things maybe that I can't always hear from them, that they know that I'm engaged and they know that I support them and care about them based on my body language and my play interactions with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are really good points. And working with children in any capacity, those are great points. So you have some different resources that you've created online. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and how people can access them, as well as how people can contact you if they have questions about their children's physical therapy needs or anything with that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. So my advocacy journey has really taken off during the pandemic. And so in 2021, I started an online platform that is a website and a blog and a social media account called BBPT. So on Instagram, I'm BB__PT. And my website is www.bb-pt.com. And those are both wonderful ways to get in touch with me. I have lots of resources available for parents regarding infant development. And I also share a lot about my experience with hearing loss and my journey towards dismantling ableism in the spaces around me. I have videos that people can look at to kind of look at how to best support their infant's development throughout their first year of life. I have a lot of reels and posts about little like tips and tricks around certain exercises and different milestones. And I also offer a lot of like mentorship opportunities for students and people who are interested in getting into physical therapy or working with infants and children. So I host book clubs and journal clubs and mentor sessions, all virtually because of the pandemic and because it allows us to connect all over the globe. And so I love to take on a mentorship role for students and people interested in the field as well.
That's amazing. As much as like the pandemic was such a hard time, I actually love how so many more resources are now virtual because it allows us to connect with people, like you said, more globally. And I really do like that because that's how I found you online. Because my daughter, she's now a year and a half. So I was looking for, different accounts to follow. And I was like, oh, you have hearing loss. Like it was so great to like connect on different levels. So that's really awesome. But
That's
yeah,
so
thank
much
you so much
fun.
for coming on. I really enjoyed hearing you talk about, your hearing loss experience, but then how you kind of changed it and become super successful as a pediatric physical therapist. So that's just amazing. So thank you for sharing your story with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the advocacy work and the resources that you offer, April. You're just such a powerful presence in the hearing loss community, and you've helped empower me on my own journey too. So thanks
Oh,
for all
thank you
that you
so
do.
much. That's amazing. Well, I'll be sure to link all of your websites and resources below in the caption. And if people want to contact you, I will send them your way.
Thanks so much.
Amazing.